Alright guys, so as always, the first bit of this is going to be a spoiler-free review of Deltarune, and then the last bit of this is going to be a spoilery review of chapters 3 and 4. Now, I don't normally review video games on this channel, but I really love Undertale and Deltarune, so screw it. You can't stop me, this is my channel. So yeah, let's get into it. If you don't know, Deltarune and Undertale are like top-down, turn-based RPGs, and Deltarune is like not necessarily the sequel, but it's very much the follow-up to Undertale. And I think what makes these games special and what, really draws me to them is the fact that within most turn-based games, it's like when the enemies are attacking you, you kind of just have to stand there and take it, and that's very unappealing to me. Granted, I haven't played a ton of turn-based games, so maybe I just have to get more into the genre, but what really draws me to Undertale as well as Expedition 33, which came out earlier this year and is also amazing, is just the fact that you can dodge attacks. In Undertale specifically, when the enemy is attacking you, it turns into almost like a bullet hell sequence where you control your heart, and you move it around to dodge attacks. And then, there are a bunch of different ways that the combat manifests itself, because the other thing about Deltarune and Undertale is that every enemy has unique attack patterns, right? So no two enemies are going to attack the same way. And so the combat is very dynamic. It's always keeping you on your toes. You're always having to learn new enemy attack patterns. And yeah, so the combat, I think, is really great in Undertale and Deltarune. The other thing about these games is that you don't actually have to kill anybody. And that's just all, that was a really interesting wrinkle in Undertale. I'm not entirely sure how it plays out in Deltarune. Like in Undertale, the decisions that you make really impact the story. In Deltarune, it's one of those things where I'm kind of going through it as a good guy. I'm trying not to kill people. I've still yet to see exactly how that's gonna end up, and what the differences are between them. So we'll see with Undertale. But just the fact that you don't have to kill anybody, I think is it's cool. The other thing about Deltarune and Undertale is the writing. It's great. It's very clever. It's very charming. It's witty, right? It's a genuinely funny game, and it's not funny in a cringe way. It's not funny in a Borderlands way where it's like, hey, look at my balls, right? It's just witty dialogue. It's wholesome. It's like that really, I was talking about the combat earlier. To be totally honest with you, I actually feel like the main reason why you would want to play these games is because of the writing. Falling in love with the extremely likable characters, getting enwrapped in the storyline and the interactions between them. The lore, I think, is pretty deep, right? Where after you play it, you're probably gonna want to look up lore videos to explain all the things you missed. But unlike something like Five Nights at Freddy's or Dark Souls, granted I've heard this about Dark Souls, I haven't gotten too deep into that franchise, but whereas the front-facing storyline in those games aren't really all that engaging, and that you then have to go out and watch lore videos in order to get something out of the story, the front-facing story in Deltarune is really great, right? You fall in love with your main protagonists, you fall in love with their relationships. It's then when you go and look at the lore videos where it's like a cherry on top of oh, that's really interesting. I am curious to see what else is going on in this world. So yeah, as far as my spoiler-free thoughts, I think Deltarune is great. You don't have to play Undertale in order to play Deltarune. And I think Undertale is great, and I encourage people to play it, but the main thing about Deltarune and why I say that is because the first 2 chapters of Deltarune are free. So you can kind of just jump into it and see if you like these games or not. And then you do have to pay $25 to get chapters 3 and 4. But the good thing about it is that the game isn't done yet. And I want to say that the next 3 chapters, right? So the rest of the game is going to come out at once next year in 2026. But if you pay $24 now, you get the rest of the game along with that. So you're paying the $25 for, the rest of the game. So, and by the way, I also think a valid way to go about it would be to just wait for the entire game to be out and play through it at once, because that's my biggest criticism so far. It's just that I want to play the rest of the game. Not that I was like necessarily dissatisfied by the end of chapter 4. Like, it does end on a really cool note, and I feel like I got an experience out of it, but I want to finish it. I want to see the rest of the story play out. And yeah, so overall, highly recommend it. Check out these games if you haven't. Deltarune specifically, you can play the first 2 chapters for free, so you can absolutely do that if you want to see if these games are your jam. But yeah, other than that, let's get into the more spoilery discussion. So in chapter 3, we meet Tenna. And I think he's great. I think he's a really great antagonist for the chapter. I love his animation, right? The fact that he looks 3D, but he kind of looks like the fake 3D from like the Donkey Kong games on the SNES, where, if I remember correctly, how did they animate those? I think they were like 3D models that they then kind of like smushed into a 2D plane. I think that's how they did it on the SNES, but he kind of looks like that, and it's a really cool effect. I will say he is kind of a Mettaton, a ripoff kind of character, right? Like it does feel samey. However, I think when they start going deeper into his story, and like they essentially start revealing that Tenna is literally the TV, like, that your family used to watch, and that they then kind of like within Tenna's storyline, they kind of reveal that and maybe they touched on this in chapters 1 and 2, but I just don't remember. But at least for me, like I found out through chapter 3 that the inanimate objects like do kind of have souls within them, and it seems like their purpose is to appease the Lighteners, is to appease the people in the real world. It's kind of a Toy Story like scenario. And so when you dive deeper into Tenna's character, like, he does become unique, I guess, from Mettaton, even though I guess Mettaton also wanted to appease people, but he was like an actual person. Like, Tenna is an inanimate object that's a lot more like Woody from Toy Story. And then we also learned that Rousey's kind of the same way, although we don't know exactly where Rousey comes from, because we know that he looks like Azrael, but like, is there an Azrael plushie in his room? Like, what made Rousey come to be? I feel like that's like a secret that they're still not really telling us. Also within chapter 3, we get this really cool like RPG game where Susie and Rousey are essentially playing like co-op with you, which is like a really cool mechanic. I don't know. I've never really seen anything like this in a video game. So these bits were super fun. I also really dug the Guitar Hero segments. I was really bad at them because I don't really play Guitar Hero, but I still had fun with them. And I mean, hot take, the music in Deltarune and Undertale is good. I know not a ton of people acknowledge that, but I like to give the brave takes here on my channel. But I will say though, I think things started getting like, I think Deltarune so far, chapters 1 through 3, I think it's good, great even. That being said, I don't think it really comes close to the quality of Undertale. However, once we start getting into chapter 4, I think that's when I started going like, okay, here we go. If they can keep up the momentum of chapter 4 all the way through chapters 5, 6, and 7, I think it can actually come close to Undertale, because I really started getting into the storyline of, the overworld and everybody's, like, all the characters, and, specifically Susie and Noelle's relationship, I think, is super cute. And then we start getting more into, like, evil Chris. Like, what's going on with sorry, I pulled up the wrong clip. Like, yeah, like, what's going on with evil Chris? And then like this whole sequence where you're moving your heart around, and it's like Chris is like acting independently from you, and it's like it brings up the whole like meta situation where it's like you are literally yourself in the game and you're almost like possessing Chris. But then it also brings up the questions of like, is Chris Kara? Or is Chris just genuinely evil? Like, you're kind of possessing Chris, but then is Kara possessing Chris? Like, all these questions really start building up in chapter 4, which I think is really cool. And by the way, I like to watch some of the lore videos, but I don't pretend to have like a super definitive take on exactly what's going on. I also like meeting Noelle's mom. Like, I feel like they're very heavily alluding that she is the knight. And she's clearly like working with Chris. So it's really interesting stuff. Not entirely certain where all that's going. I will also note that I'm aware that there is like a genocide route that you can do in Deltarune. Now, I don't really want to do it. Like, I don't know. I've been playing in the pacifist way. I want to finish the game pacifist and then maybe go back and do the genocide route, which I think is called the Snowgrave route. So maybe there's a lot of lore that I'm missing by not doing that, but I don't know. I don't want to mess up my save file in any way. Like, I want to do a pure run in a pacifist manner. So I don't know. By the way, since the game is out there, people are going to obviously openly talk about it. Feel free to tell me if I'm missing any lore details from the genocide route. Also, feel free to tell me if I'm missing any lore details from the pacifist route, because I might just be stupid. But yeah, I also thought it was interesting, this whole sequence where like we start getting the prophecy and we find out that Rousey has been keeping things from us, but it's not necessarily because they're evil. I know that that's something that a lot of people were theorizing, but it more so goes back to the whole Toy Story thing where the purpose of the Darkners, they're inanimate objects and they want to appease us. They want to be helpful to us. So I like that that's really more so the reason that Rousey was keeping things from Chris and Susie. They obviously start alluding to the fact that the prophecy has like a dark turn at the end. It seems like, I mean, they don't say exactly what's supposed to happen in order to save the world. I assume that somebody needs to sacrifice themselves. But they obviously keep that vague. Although Susie knows, and I like the whole thing of, she's like, we're not gonna let that happen. And I like how like headstrong Susie is, where she's like, I don't give a shit about the prophecy. Like, we are going to save the day, and we're not gonna let bad things happen. So I think that's like, I really started to appreciate Susie more and more in chapter 4. I also love the old man. I did not know while I was playing it that this old man is the same character as this person from Undertale, like the shopkeeper in the caves. I didn't pick up on that. But I think that's really cool. Like, he was always like a very intriguing character because I remember specifically in the genocide route, you couldn't kill him because he would just stay in the shop menu and he wouldn't engage you in a fight, which I always thought was very, very fascinating. Like, him and who else? I want to say I think the Monster Kid, right? You don't kill the Monster Kid. I think those are like the two main characters that you never get the chance to kill. But yeah, I also didn't realize that, and again, I didn't find out about any of this until I watched some videos after I played the game, but I didn't realize that in Undertale, if you call Undyne when you're in front of his shop, she mentions that Gerson trained her, right? Because they say in Undertale that what's his face, your dad oh god, the king, I'm forgetting his name, oh my god, fuck, I'm forgetting his name, but you know what I'm talking about, the king. He's your dad in Deltarune. I know they mentioned that he trained Undyne, but apparently she also trained under Gerson. And when you fight Gerson in Deltarune, he has Undyne's attacks, which is like a really, really neat thing that I didn't put together. I thought Toby Fox was being lazy. Although that's a joke. yes, it is similar to the Undyne fight, but it also adds its own mechanics. So it's cool. By the way, I did not fight the secret boss. I didn't do the secret boss fight in chapter 3. I don't even really know how to get to it. But I did do the one in chapter 4 where it's like a special fight against Gerson, which was really hard. But gamer, I did it. I got the axe or whatever. So yeah, Gerson was a great character in chapter 4. It also introduces a new bit of lore where like not only can inanimate objects come to life in the dark world, but even like dead people can come back to life in the dark world, because Gerson was a real person, right? And he was like the dad of the preacher, I guess. So I wonder if we're going to be able to talk to the preacher and he's going to have like an emotional reaction in like chapter 5. I wonder how that's all going to play out. But that's just like a really interesting thing that they're that they brought up here in chapter 4. They also introduced a climbing mechanic, which I thought was super fun. Like all the like movement I thought was like really cool. Like it ends up like sort of coming all together in this like genuinely epic finale where you're like climbing the fucking tower and it's all epic and shit. Like, yeah, man, like chapter 4 really took it to another level, I thought. And then there's this like really cool Titan fight or whatever, and even like the concept of Titans I thought was really cool. So I'll be honest, like I don't really know how you can top this in like the upcoming chapters. Maybe Toby Fox won't even try to do it, won't try to top this until like chapter 7. I'd be okay with that, but yeah, man, that whole sequence was just like really cool. Unless I'm forgetting things, I don't remember there being anything quite like that in any of the previous chapters and even in Undertale. So really cool stuff. Another thing about Chris. So like another reason why I'm just not sure if Chris is being like possessed by Kara or if he himself is evil, because there's like the whole moment with the piano where it's like he has to like force himself to play it. And I'm like, is that Chris fighting against Kara? Because I don't know. I don't know. Let me know what the popular theories are on that. But yeah, man. Really excited for the next few chapters. I'm glad that they've confirmed that we only have to wait until 2026 to play at least chapter 5. I'm not entirely sure if they're releasing all 3 chapters in 2026. Hopefully that is the case, because as much as I like the game, the fact that we've had like multiple year-long breaks in between chapters, it's just been really annoying. And yeah, I don't like it. That's what I have to say. But yeah, let me know what you think about chapters 3 and 4 in the comments down below. I think, did I say this earlier in the video? Feel free to spoil the Snowgrave route for me. I'm choosing not to play it, but I also acknowledge that it's out there. Like I'm just choosing not to. So I'm not going to try to like avoid lore details from the Snowgrave route. I'm not going to police my comment section or anything like that. So feel free to explain the lore fully in any way that you want to. Also, I know that Gaster is like a thing. Explain that to me too. So hold on. Let me see if I understood this correctly. So Gaster, who was teased in Undertale, he has like the ability to travel through the multiverse, I guess. And so people think that Gaster is like maybe orchestrating some of the stuff in Deltarune, or do they think that the knight is Gaster? Or was it that like the shed, the bunker, had like wingding sounds coming from it? I don't know. Explain to me what Gaster has to do with Deltarune. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.